So most of us think we're pretty informed, right, about what's going on in the world. We follow the news, maybe the markets. We feel like we get the picture of global progress.
Yeah, we try to stay updated.
But then Hans Rosling comes along and basically drops a bombshell. What if almost everything you think you know about poverty, health, global trends, what if it's just systematically wrong?
It's a strong opening. He points out that when you test highly educated people on basic global facts, they often score worse than chimpanzees picking answers randomly.
Worse than random chance. That really shows how deep this ignorance he's talking about might go.
Absolutely. And that shocking idea really sets up the core argument of his book, Factfulness, which brings us to this analysis. Enjoy a bold new take on book coverage with this extended analysis.
Right, this is more than just a summary, though. We do include that, too.
Yeah, this feature really digs into how the author, Rosling in this case, shapes his argument, how he builds influence, and how he earns or maybe loses your trust along the way.
The idea is to give you the tools to read with, well, sharper insight, more discernment.
So should you read Factfulness? Hopefully this deep dive will help you decide.
And honestly, for anyone interested in writing, especially persuasive writing, watching how Rosling works is invaluable. It's a masterclass, really, in blending data and storytelling.
Definitely. Oh, and a quick note for everyone listening. You are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation. This is powered by Google's NotebookLM, designed for deeper, more dynamic book analysis.
Okay, so the book itself. Why did he write it? What was the urgency?
Well, Rosling saw this huge, dangerous gap between the reality of human progress and what people thought was happening. Massive misinformation. That's the exigence, the reason the book felt necessary.
Public perception was just way off.
Dangerously so, he argued. People constantly underestimate improvements globally, leading to this kind of unwarranted pessimism, bad decisions. His whole point was to give readers a mental toolkit, basically, to help them think in a factful manner.
Okay, so he's essentially telling us we're ignorant. How does he get us to trust him on that?
Yep.
That's about credibility, right? The ethos.
Exactly. And Rosling had serious credentials. He wasn't just some random guy. We're talking a Swedish physician, professor of international health, a renowned statistician.
And a huge TED speaker. Millions saw his talks.
That background alone is pretty formidable, yeah. But there's something else that adds weight, contextually.
Let's have.
The book came out after he passed away. His family and collaborators explicitly framed it as his last battle against devastating ignorance.
Wow. That's powerful framing.
Incredibly powerful, rhetorically. It immediately gives the whole project this profound sense of gravitas, makes the fight against ignorance feel almost like a life-or-death mission.
But you know what struck me most about his credibility strategy wasn't just the impressive CV, it was his vulnerability. Almost calculated vulnerability.
Yes, that's such a key insight. Most experts project infallibility, right? I know everything.
Right. But Rosling does the opposite. He openly talks about his own past mistakes, his own ignorance on certain things.
And that's the brilliance of it. He uses that vulnerability to connect with you, the reader. He's not up on a pedestal saying, I'm perfect. He's saying, look, I got this wrong too, many times, even with all my expertise, but I figured out how to overcome it.
So he's like a reformed skeptic.
Precisely. He learned to fight those instinctual biases with hard data. It comes across as real intellectual honesty, and it's incredibly persuasive.
Makes him feel much more accessible, too. So who's he aiming this at?
Educated general audiences, mostly. People in policy, business, anyone who consumes, let's say, high-level news and information.
And his goal isn't small. He wants to change how you make decisions, how society understands these big global patterns.
It's ambitious. So, okay, he's built the trust. Now he needs the proof, the logos, the logic.
And that's where the data comes in, mountains of it.
Right. He systematically presents statistical evidence. And we're not talking simple pie charts. Critics point out he used huge data sets coupled with this really eye-opening software he helped develop. Gapminder, yeah. To really dismantle these deeply ingrained myths about poverty, health, wealth, all of it.
The data is clearly the engine driving his argument. But the emotion. That's important too, right? The pathos.
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't just throw numbers at you. He knows a dry statistic about, say, vaccination rates is easy to forget.
But a story.
A story sticks. He transforms abstract concepts into these visceral, memorable experiences.
Like that story from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where his own biases almost got him into serious trouble.
Exactly like that. He uses those kinds of personal, often dangerous encounters not just for dramatic effect, but to show how these cognitive biases like the fear instinct he talks about operate in real life. High-stakes situations.
It makes the concepts feel less academic and more urgent, human.
Gives them immediate weight. Which leads us nicely into the book's core structure.
The 10 instincts.
The 10 instincts. This is arguably the most practical, actionable takeaway from the book. The whole structure is this very clear problem-solution format.
Identify the instinct, show the danger, give a rule to fix it.
Spot on. These instincts, the gap instinct, negativity, fear, size, generalization, and so on, they aren't just chapter titles. They're designed as logical, memorable categories. He identifies the bias, illustrates why it's dangerous with data and stories, and then offers a simple fact-based mental rule to counteract it.
Let's maybe unpack one quickly. The gap instinct feels fundamental.
It really is. That's our tendency to divide everything into two distinct, often opposing groups, with a huge gap in between, like the old developed versus developing countries idea.
A world divided.
But Rosling uses data to show that binary view just doesn't reflect reality anymore and hasn't for decades. Instead of two separate lumps, rich and poor, most of humanity, the vast majority, is actually in the middle now. Levels 2 and 3, as he calls them.
And the gap instinct blinds us to that progress.
Completely. It makes us miss the massive shift. So his simple rule for that one is, always look for the majority. Where do most people actually live?
Stop seeing the world as just us versus them.
Right. Find the middle ground, because that's where most people are. It instantly makes your worldview more factful.
It's clever how he uses such, well, accessible language. It feels conversational, but underneath it's quite sophisticated analysis, isn't it?
Very much so. He masters that balance between scientific rigor and making it understandable, even feel like common sense, to a wide audience.
And the visuals. We have to mention the visuals.
Oh, definitely. The infographics, the charts. Critics called them Trojan horse cheat sheets.
Huh. I like that. Why Trojan horse?
Because they kind of sneak these complex statistical relationships into your understanding almost effortlessly. They make the data immediately graspable. It's smart, multimodal rhetoric, words, images, data, all working together.
So you apply these rules, look at the data he presents. It really can reset how you think about things.
It's designed to, systematically.
You know, these kinds of insights, blending factfulness with critical thinking, that's really what we aim for here. Think of these discussions as the mindful moments we offer.
Right. Our YouTube channel provides AI book analysis, summaries, critiques, all aimed at sparking that kind of reflection and rational thought.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. We need to ask the critical questions now. How effective was factfulness ultimately, and what are its limitations?
Well, on its own terms, achieving its stated goal. It was hugely successful. You see its influence everywhere. Business leaders quote it. Policymakers reference it. As a tool for promoting fact-based thinking in individuals, it clearly works for many people.
But there's always a but in analysis, isn't there?
Usually, yes. And here, critics point to some significant limitations. One major one is what some call its political narrowness. Meaning Rosling puts almost all the emphasis on fixing the individual's mind. Individual cognitive reform, how you can overcome your biases.
And less on the bigger picture.
Less focus on the political or economic structures that might be creating or sustaining global problems and inequalities in the first place.
Okay. So if we're only focused on fixing the biases inside our heads,
we might end up neglecting the systems out there that are causing the inequality he sometimes seems to downplay with his focus on overall progress. This connects directly to the main narrative critique against Rosling.
Which is? That
he sometimes presents what critics call a cartoonishly simple narrative wherein capitalism is responsible for virtually everything good.
That sounds quite critical.
It is. The argument is that his relentless focus on aggregate improvements, the world moving from level 1 poverty towards level 2 or 3, while true on average, tends to obscure or minimize the very real, ongoing, painful inequalities and systemic issues that still exist.
So focusing on the 80% progress might make us forget the 20% still left behind, or the costs of that progress.
That's the core of the critique. It forces you to question his data presentation, maybe its selectivity. While he powerfully proves the world is generally much better off than doom and gloom narratives suggest, Scholars ask if he adequately tackles the deeper structural problems, things like, say, the environmental costs of the global economic growth he celebrates.
Or the critiques of the capitalist system itself that drive some of those inequalities.
Exactly. Does his framework fully account for those? Some argue it doesn't. It feels, to some critics, like he takes these incredibly complex global equity issues, poverty, resource depletion, systemic bias, and sort of reframes them
And frames them how?
as an internal quest for stress reduction and self-improvement, mainly for the educated Western reader. Fix your thinking. Feel better about the world.
Which is rhetorically very effective, maybe even comforting.
Right. But does it risk minimizing the external, political, corporate challenges that demand collective action and structural change, not just individual mindset shifts? That's the ethical question raised.
So summing up that part, factfulness is a undeniable rhetorical achievement. It's brilliant at challenging our misconceptions using logic, data, and really smart credibility building.
Agreed. It's a powerful tool. But as critical readers, we also need to see its limitations. That intense focus on individual psychology means it doesn't engage as deeply with the underlying structural causes of some global problems.
Which brings us back to a central tension for you, the listener, the reader. When you're trying to understand the world, or maybe even solve its problem, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, the line between fixing how we see things, our internal biases, our instincts, and fixing the actual systems we live within. The political systems, the economic ones.
It's not necessarily an either, is it?
Probably not. The challenge is to use Rosling's fantastic tools for factfulness to really see the world more clearly as it is, but also to keep that critical lens sharp, to engage with those bigger systemic issues that the aggregate data might sometimes smooth over or hide. Both kinds of thinking seem pretty necessary.
Definitely something to reflect on. Okay, if you want the straightforward summary of the book's key points, click the link on screen for the in-depth book summary. And please subscribe, share, maybe purchase the book via the link if you're interested, and always think rationally.
Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.